I'm going to go through this systematically using the cage system, and this is going to be your C shapes. Now, the C shape is pesky, so we've done the theory. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at that bog standard chord there. So we're going to look at this one here. Now, you might not realise it. I'm playing 5 strings here, but some of these notes are repeated. This is a C, this is an E, this open G string, root, 3rd, 5th, root, 3rd. Now, one thing we know, and this is the bog standard major triad, that's root, 3rd, 5th. Then we need to work out our first. Let's go for the basic ones. Let's go for a sus2 chord, okay? Now, to get the sus2, we know we have to go root, 2nd, and 5th. That's the formula for it. So we have to suspend these thirds. Now, suspending an open string, the way we do that is we just don't play it, okay? So we just get rid of it. It's the simplest way to do that there, yeah, is to not play it there. Now, this is why we end up with 2 different shapes here, common shapes, I would say. We've got a 3rd here and we have a 3rd here. But what we can also do is we can think of it, a root and a 2nd could be here. So really what I can do is I can put the 2nd here. This is one of my favourite ways of playing it. Root, kill that there, and then I have the 5th here. The root, the 5th and the 2nd there like this. And then that gives us this C sus2 like this. So there we go. That's as simple as it is. So if you struggle to play a C like this is a C sus2. Yeah, that's the 2 there. And it sounds lovely. So we've got that one there. Now what I could do is I could do a mix of both of these. If I've got the root here, I could have the 2nd here as well. So there's the 3rd. If we lower it back to the open string, we get to the 2nd. So we can have that there. I can have that root there. I can even have that 5th there. But I'm going to kill that one. I'm going to kill that one. I can't do anything with that 3rd there because it's on the head note. It's behind the head note. So I could play this. Eyup, if you're sick of pausing my YouTube lessons and scribbling down chords and diagrams, well, I've got you. PDF Club gives you a library of over 350 exclusive downloadable and printable guitar handouts and PDFs with chord charts, diagrams and worksheets all ready to rock. Just grab what you need and get back to playing. It's the perfect partner for my YouTube video lessons. Check it out now at rickysguitar.com/get PDF Club. Now back to the lesson. Sus2 like this. Now I'm playing the D string open on that. So it's the A string, D string, G string, B string. Now the cool thing is, I want you to hear this, guys. And this is what I was saying right at the beginning about the re-establishing the 3rd for the resolution. Yeah, the suspension is the hanging sound. Yeah, so when I put that 3rd back on, can you hear it? It sounds like the chord is complete. Now, if you take that and you use that as an idea, and you can even add that other sus2 up there. But now I know it because I know where my 3rds are. It always reminds me of that thing. Do you know where your kids are? And I think to myself, do you know where your 3rds are? Yeah, do you know where your 3rds are? If you know where your 3rds are, then you know how to find your suspensions. If you know where all those notes are, then you're golden. So we've got... Yeah. Yeah, now it sounds like it wants to go somewhere, but this, you can hear it hanging, complete on the full C. There's a lot you can do with that, and I would say that the beauty of this is you've got a song, say it's 4 bars of C. could even put that on there, but that's a fifth and it's transparent. It's not really adding to it. Let me add to that, show you what I'm doing there. It's just all the pinky movement here. But what you're doing is you're zhuzhing it up. You're fancifying your basic C grip. And you're making it interesting by using these suspensions. And this is why I think of them as that first modification that you want to make. Now, if we keep that third, look at this. So if we keep that third, imagine we're keeping it there, right? Got a root here. We're going to keep the third. But we want to have an add 9. And this is the difference, remember? Root, third, fifth, and then we've got the 9 there. That's the formula. We're going to put that there. And remember, I had this root note here, but I also could have a second here. I'm going to put that second there. But the second is transformed because we've gone over from the simple octave into the compound octave. And then that transforms then into a 9 there, guys. So then we end up with the 9 there. The fifth is here. Yeah. So that ends up being a chord. In fact, actually, probably the most common way of playing it is putting the fifth there. There's the C sus2. By adding the third back in, it becomes a C add 9. Let me add that fifth in there. I can add that in there on my sus2 if I wanted to. Transfers lovely if you want to go from a C to a G. Look at this. Okay, do you see what's going on there? But the thing is, I'm doing it intelligently. I know exactly where everything is. Revving that chord up. Vamping with one finger. That's what I call vamping. It's putting air into the chord, the sound of the chord. So there is the C add 9. Okay, the next one that I really want to get to is going to be the sus4. So we'll go for the sus4 here. Then we're going to have a root, we're going to have a fourth, we're going to have a fifth. Let's put that there. Root, third. In fact, actually, let me just draw in the chord there. There's a couple of ways to play this. And because I know where my thirds are, then all I need to know is my fourth is going to be either there or it's going to be there. So I can play this note, this note, this note, this note, this note. Let me show you what that looks like. So there's my C. I put the sus4 on there. Now that is a sus4 as long as I don't play the thin E string, because that's a third. If I play the thin E string, then that 4 changes its role. It becomes an add 11. Listen, so just on the inside 4 strings, sus4, as soon as I fire through onto that open E, I change it all completely. Now I'm playing a C major triad with an added 11 here instead. And this is why 4 and 11 are the same thing here, guys. This is a 4 and it's an 11. So, but I like this way of playing it because I'm playing the C, the F, the G, the C and the F here. Those notes there. Look how easy it is to put on a cheat F. Yeah? That takes me down to sus2 there. Yeah? So there's an F, albeit in inversion with the fifth in the bass there. That would be the full F. But you can't do this with that, with the bar. So you have to do it like this with the cheat way, or you can get your thumb over the top. Yeah? We take that off there. And then we start to see that sus2s and sus4s actually become enharmonic with each other as well. So they're great from blending from one chord to the next. So if I take this C here. So I'm just playing between C and F there. And you just think to yourself, moving from C to F, that it's just a fairly bog standard change, but you can make it pretty. When you move from one chord to the next, if you can add some interest, then it's just going to make you sound a lot more pro. So going back to the dianogram, I think probably the easiest way to play the sus4, and the reason we have two versions is because we've got two thirds here. So we've got root, we've got the fourth there. We are going to play the root here. We can kill that string there, and we can have a fifth here as well. So that's another way to get your head around it. You can merge these two together as well. Another one, like I was just saying to you, is if I've got the root there, if I had the third there, I'm going to put the third back in there. I'm going to reinstate that third. Root there. Fifth is here. But you can see I've got my triad there, and I haven't got my seventh, so I'm adding to this. So if I put that 4 in, remember, 2, 9, 4, 11. They're the same thing. So the 4, this becomes my 11 here. So I can add this. So this becomes add 11. That's what I'm thinking when I'm seeing that chord. You hear how that open E string changes the sound of everything, but I'm holding down. It's essentially an E minor shape there, and then my first finger on the first fret of that B string there. So we've got that going on there, right? And this just takes care of your C shapes. I'm sure there's another add 11 I can muster out of it. I could probably play it like this. There's my standard C chord. There's my third. There's going to be my fourth, which is now an 11th. So if I just bar across it. There is nothing in the diagram that doesn't exist in the formula. The formula is there. Root, third, fifth, and 11th. We've just added that 11th to it. So these are the C shapes. Let me fire through some of the others. The C shapes and the G shapes are the worst to get through because they have two thirds. The E, A, and D shapes don't, which brings me to the A shapes. Now let's look at the A shapes. Like I said, this is caged. These are the A shapes from caged. And we have the good old 5R3. Okay, so we've got a root there, and then we've got a fifth there. That is the way it works. Very, very simple, because we look for the third. Oh, there it is. And then let's play this as a sus2, and that gives us a root, a second, and a fifth. So we're going to take that fifth, take that root there, and then take that third and drop it down to this open string here, and then we can have another fifth there as well. So this is the sus2 chord, and this is very simple, and there's not much to write about with this one. It's that. Here's the major. Yeah, and just to show you that this is going to work as a minor. So there is A minor, A sus2, A sus4. Yeah, that riff utilizes that idea there. But look, major, sus2, sus4, okay, so we can use that there, and it becomes easy. Now, sus4, dead easy. We've got a root, we've got a fourth, and we've got a fifth. Fifth, root, and we put the 4 just there. Okay, we're just moving it up. So that lives there. Now, remember me talking about that Lydian suspension, right? I'm just going to call it Lydian sus because really the formula for that is root, sharp 4, 5. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have fifth, root, and I put my sharp 4 here. Yeah, I've got my root there. It's an easier shape to play. I'm not going to play that note there, but here's how that sounds. And it's going to sound off. Fifth, root, sharp 4. But I can go to a sus2 on it as well. the cool thing about that sharp 4 is that it's the third of chord 5. So that's a good way of looking at that one. But the suspension works with all of those there. Now, let's just quickly look at a major with an add 9. So if we've got that A shape there, what we want to do is we want to think, well, where's my 9 going to be? There's my root. That would be where my second is. Remember, 2 and 9 are enharmonic, 4 and 11 are enharmonic. So look, add the 9. I've got to put this on here. So I'm going to go 5th. I'm going to go put my 3rd there. I'm going to put the 9 just here. I'm going to bar across here, have the root, and I have that there. All right, so that's the chord shape. There's your A. And now what I do is I take the root and turn it into a 9. Yeah, we know that one. We should do. But there you go. So that is with the add 9. Now we can also have a minor with an add 9. And we add that there. Then what ends up happening, we have got the flat 3rd here. We've got the 5th here. We've got the 9 here. We've got the root here. And this is what you're looking for. You're looking for all those notes there. Now this is going to be a bit tricky. There's the A minor. So I've got 5th, root, flat 3. Take the root, move it up to the 9 there. So it's going to be this shape. I'm not putting the 3rd finger on there, by the way. It has to hover. But the string's just slotting into the cut on my index finger. Lovely. Yeah, so there's the A minor add 9, yeah. Adds that extra sound to it there. So we'll put that there. Let's scoot through the G shape. I'm not going to go through all of the G shapes. They will be available in PDF Club, but you know, because it will take forever for me to systematically go through everything. Root, 3rd, 5th, root. I'm going to do the what I call the Dylan G, which is the 3-fingered version there. So there's the G shape. Now we can think to ourselves, that's major. And the formula for that is root 3rd, 5th. So what if we want a G sus 2? We're going to look at what's available to us to be able to move around. And I think the easiest way to make a G sus 2 is to take this root here. See the 3rd there? We drop it down. We drop that down there. And that means we end up with the 5th, the root, and the 3rd. We're going to suspend that. So what we do is we suspend it by putting the 5th on there. And then we have the root there. So this is the shape that you end up with. It looks like a G, but the thing is, that open A is a bit muddy, okay? So what I like to do is, I'll just put that A and take it up an octave. So look, here's that chord again. Yeah, and let me just show you. I'll do it on a different diagram here. Sus 2 again. So we're going to get root. I'll kill this one here. No A string, but I'm going to keep the 5th. I've already got a root, so I don't need to double up on it, but I will put the 2 here. And then I'll keep that 5th, and I keep the root there. So you end up with this shape. Now you can hear it sounds bright. Listen to how that works. Back to a normal G there. Now if I want a sus 4, what I do is I like to push this up here. There's the 3rd. Exchange it for that. This shape, why I like this shape, is because it leaves you with just 1/3. This shape leaves you with 2/3. You've got a 3rd there on the 2nd fret of the A string, and you've got a 3rd as the open B string, which means it becomes harder to muck around with these suspensions and add chords and all that sort of other good stuff. Because if I take that off there, the 3rd's still present. So the way we tame it is by using this, I call it the Oasis G, this one here. I know that it does sound a bit muddy in the bottom end there. Now we can play it in a different way, and if you've ever seen people who play the G like this, now the fingering of this is really particular, because this is the way it works. This is going to be for a G sus4. So we're going to have a G, we're going to mute that string there, and we're going to have the 4 just there, and we're going to have the root here as well. So we've got the root, and I've got the 5th here. So this is going to be a sus4. So it's a G sus4. There's your G. Now if I add that 3rd in, it's not a sus4 anymore. It's become an add 11. Great chord is this, because it's so close to the C. Look at this. If I move that shape down, I get a C chord with an extra 5th in the upper voice here on the thin E string. Okay, just take that off. Or if I mute that over there, yeah, I'm muting the A string to get rid of the 3rd. So this is what you've got to do, because once you know where these notes are that move you away from your understanding of what the chord is, this is the Oasis G chord. This is the one that I call the Oasis G chord there, and it's just got these 2 fingers here, because what we've got is we've got a root here, we've got a 5th here, yeah, and then we've got the root here, and then we've got the 3rd here, and we've got a 5th, and then we've got a root again. So there's only 1/3 present, whereas this one there's 2/3. Yeah, which makes it harder to manage. And also, I think, you know, if you listen to this, there's a clash in between the chord there, because going from the open B to this note here, we get a minor 6th. Okay, and I think it sounds a bit twee, whereas this got a ringing 4th there, perfect 4th. Okay, just sounds more rounded because there's only 1/3. But like I say, so you can see that all the action's happening on the A string. So there's more we can do with the G chord, but we just want to get firing through these. So let's look at the next shape, E shapes. Thankfully, we've got 1/3. We've got the 5th, we've got the root, we've got the 3rd there, root, 5th, root, there we go. We've got the major chord there, root, 3rd and 5th. Now to get the sus2, this is one that I thought was a tricky one, but I thought to myself, actually, no, it isn't as hard as you think. And I just thought, well, I've got a root there and I've got a 2nd there. So if I put this here, I'm going to put my 2nd there. But what I do is I kill off the G string. I have the 5th here, but I keep the 5th and the root on here, and I have the root here. So this is the shape that I end up playing. I love the sound of this chord. So, and what I'm doing is my 3rd finger is rolled over and it's muting out the G string. So it looks like I'm playing an E minor. Yeah. And remember, it's because it doesn't matter, because suspensions work with major or minor chords. Yeah. There's the E major. There's the sus2. Now, here's the sus4. It's the old pinball wizard one. This is one of the first I think I ever learned. The sus4, dead easy. Put it there. Got a root there. Worth looking at is this one as well. And I just basically, what I do is I just put that pinky on. Yeah, there's the shape. And put the pinky on. It looks like an A shape, essentially. Now, if you had the 3rd in and you put that, then that becomes an add 9. doesn't it? Now, I think that that one's nice, but there is another way that we can do this. So what I've done is I've taken that root, and then what I've done is I've gone up a whole step there. Root, there's the 9th. So instead of using this one here, I'm using this one here. So now I've got it in a lower place on the neck. There's my E major chord. There's the root. Move it up to the 9. Yeah? That 3rd finger isn't doing anything there, guys. So I'm holding that down there. It's a stretchy one. There's the E. Add 9. Now, like I say here is, with that add 9, really, it's major. Because we've got that major 3rd there. This one's major as well. We can have a minor, and I've got to show you this one because it's beautiful. If you're bored with your E minor and you want to make it pretty, what we do is we play the 5th here and then we add the 9 here. I love this chord. It looks like a power chord on the A and the D string there at the 2nd fret. Okay. Personally, I think that just adds some extra emotion. I think the 9th is what I kind of call a nice tone to add. You're never going to add it and it's going to sound wrong. It's kind of like, I kind of think of it as the umami flavour of chords. It just puts the umami in the chords. So now we've only got one shape left, guys. The D shapes. We're going to go root, 5th, root, 3rd. This is the major. This works on the minor as well. So let's go for the sus. Sus2. We take that 3rd, drop it down a whole step, and we get the 2nd just there. There's the root, there's the 5th, and then here's the root again. So we've got that there. So there's the sus2. Nice. And there's nothing to say. You can't mix these chord shapes up. Look, here's a nice easy way of doing it. There's the... Yeah. You can do it that way. But you can see it works with 2 different fingerings. And going to an A sus2 there. Look, D sus2 to an A sus2. And then from an E sus4 to that E. And I'm not doing much. There's not much going on. And just to show you, and I like this is a great little exercise if you're a beginner. Getting that middle finger there, that finger to come off. And pulling off on it. Bit James Taylory. And that's all just using that thin E string. You can hear I'm putting those notes in there. Now let me do it on a minor. So you can see I'm playing through these add A minor add 9, E minor add 9, there, to a D minor, to a D sus 2 there, to a D sus 4. That's as much as we're going to do there with that one. But D sus 4, root 4. There we go. So look, I've got the diagram here. So there is the sus 4. We can do more with this. I'll just have to add another fret to this. So look, if I wanted to have an add 9, not a common way of playing this. There's the 5th. There's the root. Remember, the root would be here. So the 9 is going to be 2 frets higher. So I'm going to play this like this. It's an interesting chord to play. So there's my D. There's my root. Move it up to get it into a second, but because it's an add note, it becomes a 9. And it's the same voicing, you can hear it. As this. And I'm just thinking D there. Look, there's lots of... That's an A, so that's the 5th of the chord. There's the 9, and there's the triad.